All right.
Bueno, bienvenidos a todos. Ahora vamos a continuar con el segundo panel.
Kindly invite to the front Clemente de Valle y Maria José Naranjo. Please come to the front. Thank you. And then we have also two speakers which are joining us online as well. I just got the confirmation. Perfect. So we have a different setting as yesterday. So we have like on the one, we have the speakers here on that side, not in the front, because then we can also see you two, Marta, Sebastian, very warm welcome. I hope you see us here in the front. Hello, nice to see you again. And yeah, looking forward to this to this panel. We are looking a bit about innovative instruments. We have discussed it this morning already here in the room. We have introduced a bit about different financing options for biodiversity, climate change, but also had a look at first look at debt nature swaps. And now we are very happy to have you here in the panel to discuss a bit further, to really get also some practical insights from your work, what you are doing already in this field. And we would actually like to start to introduce to the panel, the first panelist who will give an opening statement. Very happy to have you here, Clemente de Valle. He is Director of Regional Center for Sustainable Finance at the Universidad de los Andes. He is an expert in capital markets with more than 35 years experience in design and promotion of innovative financing and resource mobilization. Among others, he has also worked for several years, more than 14 years, I think, right, in the World Bank Group. His background, he's an economist with a master's degree in economics from the same university where you're now working, Universidad de los Andes, and also from the London School of Economics. So I would like to ask you maybe to kick us off a bit and explaining us why is it crucial for financial institutions, especially for DFIs, in support the transition towards a climate resilient economy, maybe a bit like provide us a big picture.
Thanks, Jonas, and thanks to One Coldex and IDFC for the invitation to be part of this panel. And I need to disclose that I was also a development and a DFI for more than nearly 7 years. I had the pleasure to establish a new DFI in Colombia for infrastructure, and we were probably one of the first in the world. I mean, I know my friends from in India and Indonesia that had private capital in the DFI, which is not common. I mean, and the name here of this bank is called FDN, which is focalized in infrastructure. Well, Jonas invited me to be suggestive. I mean, to really try to also bring the discussion a little bit more strategic at the strategic level, because you've been doing a lot. I mean, and I've been hearing a bit of some of the presentations, a lot of detailed information on instruments, strategies. So I thought that it would be good to bring the discussion at this point into the importance of what you do and what you need to do precisely in this agenda. And the way to understand the importance is, again, going back to the reason. The reason is the size of the needs, and the size of the needs are huge. When you look at the development goals, or when you look at the net zero commitments, and now when you see at the needs that you have for reducing the damage in biodiversity, we're always talking about that we need to invest between 5, 10, or 15 trillion trillion dollars a year, and more than half of it has to be in the developing world. So when you have those kind of numbers, one realizes that we're doing very little compared with the needs. And particularly in the case of biodiversity, I think that what is very, very interesting is this connection with climate change. I mean, in some way, climate change is a major source of the destruction of biodiversity. And the destruction of biodiversity is actually increasing the problems of climate change. So there is a circular relationship between those two dynamics. And therefore, in some way, you need to work. The two agendas are very, very close, and they need to be developed in a very close way. So they are not like two different topics. No, they are basically a very close thematic that needs to be addressed in a very systematic way, because it is the source of a systematic risk if it's not approached properly. So starting from the importance and the need of resources, then the question is, what is the role of DFIs when you're talking of this front? And my total conviction is that it will be very difficult to mobilize this amount of resources if DFIs don't lead the way. Jonas was asking me whether DFIs, are they in the front seat or in the back seat? And I have to say, I don't think DFIs are still in the front seat. I think they're getting prepared, but they are not there yet. DFIs and in some way need to lead the way means being the first ones to actually develop the first products, develop the first projects, be able to take, in some cases, even more risk. But they have to do it with knowledge. I mean, for me, I'm a strong believer that risks are not to be run away from, but risks have to be understood, have to be managed, have to be measured, and then they have to need to develop strategies to manage those risks. And it's the only way that financial institutions are going to be able to help the transformation and the transition that is needed. So we need a lot of, we need capital, we need seed capital in many of these enterprises and these projects. You need blended funds. You need instruments like the bonds or many of the instruments that have been. But in many cases, it requires institutions that are willing to be the first ones to raise their hand and say, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to show the way to the private sector. Private sector, in general, in my opinion, is a little bit more resistant and less willing to do it if they don't see the development banks are taking the lead and are actually taking the first step. I remember when in your hat, when I was in your hat, and we were confronted one of the largest PPP programs on infrastructure for Latin America. When we created FDN, we needed to mobilize close to $15 billion for PPPs. And Colombia had only mobilized 1 or 2 billions. When we created it with the idea that we had to be a crowding-in institution, that we really needed to invite the private sector and we needed to lead the way because the private sector was not so familiarized with the project finance risks. People were saying, no, I mean, if the project is well-structured, that's enough. I mean, we don't need development banks here. That was the argument that private sector was giving us. And 15 years after, our conclusion was that market, the Colombian market on project finance for PPPs would never have developed the way it did develop if this institution had not led the way. And that's why I'm convinced that even for this particular topic, the biodiversity topic or the climate change topic, you need institutions that understand the risks, that are willing to take and willing to manage those risks, that are willing to show the private sector how to do it. They are willing to invite the private sector to be part of it. But one of the biggest, most important things is knowledge. I mean, you really need to strengthen your capacities. And I think this kind of exercise that you're doing here is fundamental. You need to build knowledge on this. I mean, there's no rocket science, but if you don't know about it, if you don't really get into understand what are the risks really linked to biodiversity or the risks linked to climate change, it will be difficult to lead the way. If you have, in addition to that, willingness to take risk, and third, you have government support that is willing to put funds, because I'm convinced that many of these transformations are going to need funding that is blended, that is going to need resources from public sector and not big governments, I hope the $100 billion, we should be able to take some of those $100 billion that have been promised for so long and should be part of those blended funds that institutions like the DFIs should lead. I mean, I think the DFIs are the ones who can lead the management of some of those funds, of those blended funds, to support particular programs in different sectors. And maybe the last thing that I'll say, and maybe second round, when we're talking about the biodiversity, I feel that the discussion has been a bit too biased towards forests and protection of the forests and the jungles, which I think is very important. But we're not doing enough, and we're not focusing enough on things like land use. At the end, is through sustainable agriculture, through sustainable cattle, even sustainable infrastructure building and construction. If we don't incorporate biodiversity in all of those developments, we're not going to have the major impact that we needed. So if we only focus on protection of the forests, which is completely justified and needed, we're going to do only a small piece of what the world needs. So these other sectors, like agro, construction, are sectors that this industry is much more familiarized. I mean, you are much more familiarized with those industries, and you've been funding those industries. The question now is, how do you incorporate biodiversity in the programs that you need to finance going forward? How do you incorporate this dimension? And it's the same way that we've been incorporating sustainability into many of these transactions. So I really encourage that the work that needs to be done more immediately is also to address sustainable agriculture, sustainable construction, sustainable infrastructure, because we will have major impact if we do it, if we start working on those fronts as well.
All right. Thank you so much for this very strategic overview. Okay, what needs to be done, where we do have to work on. And let's move from this level to the practical level. And I would like to dial in here at this moment Marta Bandeira de Freitas. She's climate manager at Climate Department, Energy Transition and Climate Area at BNDES. She is an engineer, has a master degree in climate change and energy planning. Marta, very warm welcome. Also, we heard that that you could not manage it at the end to come here to be physically with us, but great that you are joining us online. I would like to address you this question, or the last sentence which Clemente has said. So, how do you incorporate biodiversity, climate change in your operations, but also in your investments? Maybe we start here.
Yes, I was supposed to be there with you, but unfortunately there was a problem. I didn't have a vaccine certificate. I had a vaccine and I had a certification, but I didn't have the official certification, so I couldn't get into the plane. But fortunately we have technology and I could join online. So first of all, thank you for the invitation, and IDFC, Bancodex, and to be in this great event where we are discussing so many important things and innovative things. And my idea here is to share with you some experiences of BNDES. I'm going to talk a little about two experiences that probably you have already known. No, but I will detail them a little bit more because I think they are very, very relevant. The first one is the Amazon Fund, which everybody knows is the biggest REDD+ fund in the world. But it's important to highlight that the Amazon Fund is a results fund. So Brazil first halted the deforestation between 2004 and 2012 with a command and control public policies. And then we were paid for providing this ecosystem services to the planet by preserving the forests. So I think these mechanisms of results funds that are based on results, they are more efficient. And the Amazon Fund is a very good example of that. So with these resources, we were able to invest in more nature-based solutions to preserve more the forest. So the fund, the efforts of the fund is to promote the preservation, the sustainable use of the forest as well, which brings also social benefits for the population that lives in the Amazon region. And the fund has already supported 111 projects, has raised $712 million, and has disbursed already $615 million. So it's a big fund. We're almost hitting the $1 billion number, and we are being able to invest in very good projects. One thing that I would like to highlight here is the governance of the Amazon Fund. There is an advisory committee that is formed in balance of composition between the civil society, the federal government, and the Amazon state governors. And the civil society is represented by the traditional and indigenous peoples of the Amazon region. And this committee is the organ that decides how the money should be invested. So this organ is very important for the governance of the implementation and the use of the resources. BNDES is the operator of the funds, so we generate we don't generate, but we receive the products, we design instruments, and we follow up the projects. And another thing that it's important to mention in the Amazon Fund is that the results of the projects, they are measured. And we have a robust methodology based on a theory of change framework with clear objectives, goals, and indicators that are measured annually. And these indicators are reported annually in the report of the Amazon Fund, and this report is public. It's in the site of the fund. So all the results of all the projects that are done with the fund's resources are there, are transparent. So governance and transparency of the Amazon Fund is very important. With almost more than 10 years of operation of the fund, okay, we had some years that the story, we had to stop to invest, but we were following up the projects. But we have more than 10 years operating the fund, and so it became a credible platform. And what BNDES is doing now is trying to fundraise more money to the Amazon Fund. Why? Because it's there, it's credible, it's working, and it's easy. So we were able, and it's a results fund, so we have to do our homework. So since last year, in 2023, Brazil has decreased deforestation in a relevant number. Other countries are again donating for the fund. The United States, Switzerland, and Germany again. So we were able to create a credible platform to fundraise concessional money for the preservation of the Amazon forest. And one thing that we are doing is one of the new programs that we are using the Amazon Fund resources that I like to mention here is the Restaura Amazônia. And I'm talking about this program because it is the first initiative of the arc of the restoration, the restoration arc. The restoration arc is a territory, it's a half-moon territory that is very prescient by deforestation and is in the fringe of agriculture. And it used to be called the deforestation arc, and then we rename it for the restoration arc, The idea here is to leverage money so we could restore this territory and create a buffer to protect the heart of the forest. And the first initiative of the Arc of Restoration is the Restaura Amazônia, which we are using $100 million from the NDS, from the Amazon Fund, to restore big degraded areas in this territory to protect the forest. The fund is a match funding, so we for each dollar that BNDES apports in the program, we will find other partners to double, triple, and leverage how much money is possible for the fund's resources. So private companies, other governments, other banks, development bank, multilaterals could join this initiative. But we won't stop there. We won't stop in concessional money because as it was said here, the amount of resources that is needed to preserve and restore nature is huge. Only in the Arc of Restoration, we are talking about $40 billion to be implemented until 2050. The objective is to restore 6 million hectares of priority areas by 2030. That will require $10 billion. And in the second phase, which goes up until 2050, the idea is to restore 18 million of hectares, and we will need $30 billion for that. So it's a lot of money, and concessional money won't do it. We will need other instruments. And talking about that, I will bring the second example of BNDES and the Brazilian government to which is a platform and a fund that also provides resources for biodiversity and climate projects, which is the Brazilian Climate Fund. The Brazilian Climate Fund was created in 2009 with the Brazilian climate policy. The resources comes from taxation of the oil and gas companies, but last year the Brazilian government emitted a sovereign green bond and raised about $2 billion for the climate fund and apported this money in the climate fund. BNDES is also the operator of the credit portion of this fund. And the interest rate for nature-based solution projects will be very low with this new report. It will be 1%. And so the idea is that Brazil will continue to emit green bonds and apport and continuously raise resources to the climate fund. But the idea is also to receive donations from other countries and multilaterals and national development banks, because it's already a platform which is there, it's regulated, it was created by law, and BNDES is the operator of this fund. The idea is to blend concessional money with credit money to make the interest rates as low as possible for nature-based solution and climate projects. So I gave here these two examples because they are examples that are already put in place. And so we don't have to invent the wheel again. And they are both operated by a national development bank with credibility, with good social, environmental, and climate management system. And both have good governance mechanisms because the Climate Fund also has a committee that decides how the money is going to be spent. So I think that the national development banks and the multilateral banks should focus in fundraising concessional money and low interest rates credit for NBS, because nature-based solutions need incentives to be feasible. Because as was said here again, the risks are very high. We're talking about, if we restore a forest, we're talking about the fire risk, deforestation risk. And so the risks are very high. It's a sector that is not consolidated, and we see that many people are wanting to invest, but everybody is afraid of risks and afraid of the risk. And so by saying that, another action that the development banks could do, which is a huge bottleneck for this type of projects, is to give these projects guarantees. The developers, the companies that are developing these projects, they're new. They don't have the proper collaterals for the project's risks, which are very high. And also the revenue of these projects still counts on voluntary carbon markets and the products of the forest, which both are very uncertain. And so the risks are very high. So giving guarantees to these projects, first loss guarantees, create a fund and mechanisms that could fundraise other actors, other financial actors, even commercial banks, to come, could scale up projects to achieve the amount of money that we need, because concessional funds is not going to be enough. And by talking about carbon market, I think that the development banks, they have to address that somehow. And for nature, especially for the restoration projects. And here, when we're talking about restorations, I'm saying of all biomes. Brazil has 5 biomes. We have the Amazon, we have Caatinga, we have Cerrado, Pantanal, Pampa, the Mata Atlântica, we have the coastal zone. So when we're talking about restoration of biomes, we could use, I think the carbon market, even the voluntary carbon market, could be an instrument to implement and accelerate these restoration projects. And how can the development banks help that to happen? For instance, design project finance instruments. If a restoration company, has already a contract of selling the carbon credits that they will generate, we can use this contract as guarantee. But the problem is the non-performance guarantee. That's the pre-completion guarantee. That is the bottleneck that the development banks could address. Another thing that we could address in the carbon market is to provide standard contracts for buying and selling of carbon credits. So the negotiation between sellers and buyers are more transparent. And we can use these contracts as guarantees afterwards, because we will rely on them because we created them. Another thing, we can estimate a shadow price. The pricing of carbon credits is crazy. And we can estimate, make a methodology to estimate a shadow price, which will also create credibility in the market. So these are just a few examples of what the development banks could do to boost the credit finance for the restoration sector. And since I have already talked too much, another thing that I would like to address here is about a mechanism. Since I was talking about carbon credits and carbon markets, we need, as fast as we can, to create a mechanism to put a price on nature. I know it sounds horrible to say that, to put a price on nature, but we have to internalize the externality. And the literature, the scientific literature about valuing nature is huge and very complex. And I think we have to create something that is simple as to pay by hectare, dollar for hectare preserved, area preserved. It has to be, I don't know if it's possible, but it has to be as simple as that. The carbon credit market worked because the metric is 1 ton of CO2 equivalent. So maybe here the metric should be preserved area, number of hectares preserved. But the tropical forest has more ecosystem services than Cerrado or then the peatlands. Oh no, but the number of species, the amount of fresh water. If we enter this complexity, it's not going to happen. And I think we have to keep simple as dollar per preserved area. I don't know if the discussions are going that way, but I think it's the way we should go. And we have to do it fast. So we want to achieve the COP15 Global Biodiversity Framework goals. Otherwise, we won't do that. And since I have already talked a lot, I'm going to mention 3 other examples that BNDES is doing to finance nature-based solutions. And the first one is a blended finance public call that BNDES launched to leverage capital market instruments to finance NBS and climate projects. The other one is the Sertão Vivo program. This is a big program financed by GCF, IFAD from FAO, and BNDES to support climate adaptation projects in the northeast of Brazil, which is a semi-desert area in Brazil, which has a lot of poverty. And in this Sertão Vivo program, there will be a part of the program that will be used to restore the Caatinga, which is the biome of this area, of this territory. And with the restoration of this biome, that will generate carbon credits that will go back to the communities that are being beneficiated by the projects. And these communities will also receive cisterns to capture the rainwater for agriculture production and animal creation, to generate income for them and to protect them from droughts and severe droughts that's going to happen more frequently. And the last one I will mention, Floresta Viva, which is another match funding platform that BNDES is leveraging resources to restore other biomes of Brazil, Mata Atlântica, Cerrado, and I'm wrapping up. I'm finishing, I promise. And with Floresta Viva, we are also financing the restoration of peatlands and coral reefs in Brazil. And these projects will also generate carbon credits for the companies that are match funding BNDES's resources. So thank you very much. I just like to share these experiences of BNDES, and I hope we could have a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marta. I think it was really worth the time. You have said, okay, I talked too much. No, you didn't talk too much. I think it's very worth also for us, like, to hear your experience from BNDES. Very, very pity that you're not here with us, like, to discuss also like all the other issues here in the room. So really, thank you so much for this first intervention. Now we move from Brazil to Colombia. Just before I introduce the next speaker, when we are discussing in Germany, like with our students as well in Frankfurt School, like, okay, what were good examples in sustainable finance around the world? When we're talking about Latin America, it's basically Brazil and Colombia. So we know we're moving to Colombia, and we are very happy to have one of the hosts of this training with us, Maria Jose Naranjo. She's Corporate Strategy Vice President at Bancoldex. Her background is in business administration, and she also holds a Master of Arts in International Relations. You're with Bancoldex a very long time already, more than 23 years. I think you have seen everything in the bank, also like how the transition has taken place. So maybe my first question, like, okay, how do you see the transition like towards like more sustainability activities in Bancoldex? And the second question, like a bit more practical, what is the approach the bank is following concerning implementing instruments for climate change adaptation, nature-based solution, but also climate adaptation?
Great, thank you very much for that nice introduction. And for you all, I hope you're having a wonderful time here in Bogota. I hope last night you had a nice time and you had good food and you're enjoying Bogota. I think you're maybe a little bit tired, so I will try to be as brief as possible. And we are understanding what all this is about, and we are designing, we have designed in Bancoldex a very strong sustainability strategy. And in that strategy, we have some pillars. One of them is focused especially on green growth. And in that pillar, we are addressing and we are trying to understand how we can help enterprises and especially micro businesses to mitigate and to adapt to climate change. So that I would say, Jonas, is the first statement. Well, in this kind of matters we have, and Clemente said it, learn a lot. And we are learning as a development bank, but also we have to facilitate knowledge to the banks that are working with us. Because as you know, some development banks are second-tier banks, and what we do in our case is we lend money to intermediaries, and then they lend to the enterprises. So that is how it works. So in this specific theme of mitigation and adaptation, what we did, and is maybe I will be very brief, Jonas, to share with you a special line, blended finance instrument that we designed with the United Nations Peace Fund. What we did first is understanding what was going on with mitigation and adaptation in the regions. As you know, Colombia has 32 departments and more than 1,000 municipalities, and each of them has a very specific situation or is more vulnerable than the other one if we are talking about being strong enough to adapt to climate change. So the first thing is we understood Colombia as a country of regions, and understanding what were the different situations. Then we understood what were the needs of especially the micro businesses. They don't know how to adapt. They don't know how to understand. They don't know how to go to a bank. So we, of course, understood that the first ally we had was the microfinance institutions. And we have in Bancoldex more than 100 allies, financial allies, especially 70 allies that irrigate the credit in the regions. And they go to the micro business and they go understanding what they need. So that's the second big part of the story. First, understanding the region and how they are vulnerable to facing climate change. And the second thing is what micro businesses need. So when we understood that situation, we we designed with the Fund of Nation, with the United Nations Peace Fund, a blended finance nice instrument. Why do I say nice? Because it has a very strong impact in terms of social impact, and of course in terms of green and environmental field. Then we co-create this credit special line in better conditions, better terms, better tenor, and lower interest rates. And we decided with, of course, this fund that the special credit line would only be focused on 179 municipalities that are highly hit by violence here in Colombia. So that is the part of the impact, the social impact. They need to be supported because it's the way they're going to grow, it's the way they're going to live. So if natures come, sometimes nature can be very friendly. Like here, we're happy, we're in a very nice garden. But sometimes nature hits very hard. So we understood that violence was part of the equation, and this is why this line, credit line, is only focused on micro businesses that are located in 179 municipalities here in Colombia. This is the first thing. And the second thing is that we lend for them to implement some projects in terms of ecotourism or greenhouses or any kind of solutions that they would implement to protect their business. And that is, the nice result of this is, of course, a smaller scale of figures of BNDES, and Clemente was mentioning that here the needs are huge, and of course, Colombia has huge needs in terms of transition. But in the case of Bancoldex and this instrument I'm talking about is very, very low scale. It's a very low scale because, of course, micro businesses need very low amount of money. Their capacity and their risk assessment is limited. And then we did this good and strategic liaison with the intermediaries, the microfinance institutions. And of course, we understood that they also needed knowledge in terms of development and sustainable development. And that is why we did a very nice, we received from SECO here, Mario, our friend, is helping us to receive international cooperation to help microfinance entities in the regions to enhance their knowledge in terms of development and sustainable development. So that would be very nice, and that would be very important because we need them to know and to know how to assess risk and to understand that kind of specific project in the regions. And let me finish by this, Jonas. I would like to share only 3 lessons. The first lesson we learned from the beginning, from the moment we designed this credit line with the United Nations, until now, we've disbursed 2,000 micro credit, which is not a big figure, but is good enough. We've been through maybe more than, we've disbursed $2 million. It's not wow, but it's very important and it's good enough for the region. And in terms of social impact, is a huge result, because those families, those micro businesses are really grateful, and they understand that if they don't implement the project, they won't have enough money to grow and to survive. This is the first. The first lesson is, of course, work with the microfinance entities. The second lesson is language has to be simplified because micro businesses don't understand what they're supposed to be. And finally, the third lesson is that we as development, maybe Marta said it, we have to design and we have to be innovative and we have to think in good alliances between public and private sector. You mentioned it, Clemente, in a huge scale and very big numbers. But here it has to be in small scales, and there we have the possibility to impact a lot of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. So I would finish by saying that we have to be innovative, we have to share our knowledge, not only for us as development banks, but also for the micro institutions. And finally, and more than important, we have to simplify language for them and also for us.
Thank you so much. I think a good word, and already see here the reaction directly speaks for itself. Thank you so much. Now we move again more to a different, like from a local level or national level, now to you, Sebastián Vargas Macedo, for working at the IDB. You're a financial consultant in connectivity, markets and finance division at the Inter-American, as I said, Development Bank. In his role, he's structuring, he's in charge of, among others, structuring of financial sector operations across Latin America. And also what I found very interesting, that you also were a key contributor to the structuring of and implementation of debt for nature conversion in Barbados and Ecuador. We actually had, just before the lunch break and before the session we deeply discussed it, we started discussing it. So maybe my question to you, maybe can you explain a bit what have you done, how these deals came about, and what was your role, especially at IDB, for that?
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Pleasure to be here. So if you allow me, then I can start directly talking about these operations. The first one we did was in Barbados. That was in 2022. Although it closed in 2022, these are not fast operations in terms of preparation. They involve a lot of previous work, because there is not only the financial component of a transaction, but also the conservation component, which involves a long process of defining the management plans of the conservation area, defining the strategic goals that you want to pursue. So it was a long work in which were involved not only the IDB and the Nature Conservancy as international, as a multilateral development banks and international financial institutions, but other NGOs and more specialized organizations that supported and did a lot of the groundwork in terms of conservation and marine planning. So it was an operation that involved all these parts, but maybe from my experience, I can talk more comfortably and in more detail from the financial side. So this operation consisted in a credit guarantee that we provided together with the Nature Conservancy. Like, we provided $100 million in credit guarantee. The Nature Conservancy provided $50 million. And this allowed the country to repurchase outstanding debt and replace it with new one with better financial terms. Or not only in speaking about interest rates, but also about tenor, no? So this transaction allowed to generate approximately $50 million in savings that will be destined to allocated to finance conservation activities in Barbados marine space during the next 15 years. And this will be done through an independent public-private conservation trust fund. And an important element of these transactions, moving a little bit beyond the financial part, is that the country agrees to a series of conservation commitments related, in this case, to marine conservation. So in case the country is not able to achieve the targets under these commitments, it has to pay and it has to transfer extra payments as a kind of penalty. But in contrast to the traditional structures related to bonds, either thematic or SLBs, these extra payments or penalties do not go to the investors, but rather they go back to conservation activities. No? They are channeled to this independent trust fund, and these are extra resources that these trust funds will manage to fund a series of activities, in this case, destined to protect biodiversity in Barbados and promote a sustainable blue economy in the region. No? So this is kind of a specific difference in the incentive mechanism that these kind of transactions are bringing. So similar to this one, we completed one in Ecuador last year. In this case, the IDB and the U.S. Development Finance Corporations provided a credit guarantee and a political risk insurance to back this. The for conversion, that because of the amount of debt that was repurchased, was the largest debt for nature conversions in the world so far. So this transaction allowed the country to unlock savings of up to $323 million that will be destined to finance conservation activities in the Galapagos Marine Reserve during the next 18 years. No? And furthermore, in this case in particular, given the specific financial conditions that the country was facing at the time of the financial closure of the transaction, this transaction generated an additional $1.1 billion in savings that in this case will be processed as fiscal savings. No? So in this case, it provided a debt relief in addition to the more than $300 million for conservation in Galapagos. No? So in the same manner as in the transaction in Barbados, there was a series of commitments that the country agreed to, and there's a series of incentives to or extra payments that the country must pay in case it does not comply with the intended targets in the intended years. No? And again, in case this is the case, these payments will go to fund extra activities in Galapagos. No? So they remain in the conservation arena. So these are two examples, the most recent ones. I think it's an interesting and important evolution in the use of either the credit instrument, the guarantee instrument itself, which is not a new instrument. We've had a sovereign credit guarantee instrument for many years, but it is an innovative use to put this credit enhancement instrument in the context of a debt for nature conversion. And also the innovative part of, and we must recognize this is not the first time that the for nature swaps are done, or they have been done many years ago, but this new generation of debt for nature conversions involve not only the credit enhancement component provided by multilateral development banks or development financial institutions, but and also they involve the participation of several international development actors that contribute to build this institutional infrastructure to better guarantee that the funds that will be unlocked from these transactions are adequately invested in the conservation arena. No? And this involves the creation of these independent trust funds, the establishment of these commitments, and all those incentive mechanisms. So yes, so I believe that there is a potential for innovative financial instruments as these ones to help mobilize resources towards biodiversity and other sustainable goals. And maybe speaking a little bit more generally on a broader strategy to leverage financial markets to drive investments towards conservation, I believe that any strategy should consider three crucial elements that are linked between them and involve different stakeholders. No? And one of them is, first of all, as Clemente was saying at the beginning, identifying strategic sectors and goals. No? Then we have the need to continue developing the capital markets themselves. And finally, there is the need to continue the support provided by multilateral development banks and public development banks for these goals. No? So in first place, regarding about the crucial sectors, there is still a challenge to develop tools to analyze and quantify the intended impacts so that we can establish clear roadmaps for action. Sometimes we know that biodiversity is important and the importance of sustainable economy, but there is not always the clear metrics to measure how can we progress towards this objective. No? And also, as Marta was saying, there are still enough tools to measure and give an economic value that is necessary as an input to model and to better construct these structures, no? And make them more efficient toward the targets. So that in first place. In second place, I think any strategy should consider lines of action to develop capital markets. For example, with regard to capital markets instruments such as thematic bonds or SLB bonds or loans, there is still a challenge to increase their efficacy and impact. For example, through better definition of KPIs, better design of incentive mechanisms, and better design of monitoring and reporting processes that are an integral part of all these instruments. And furthermore, there is also a challenge to construct internationally accepted principles for new innovative financing structures, as for example, the for nature conversions, so that investors are more comfortable when facing these prospects of investments, no? Because these are complex structures and sometimes the standards are still not clear in regards of how do we compare this, for example, to the ICMA principles. So there's still a lot of work to expand this and construct these principles. No? And well, of course, there is also a challenge to continue improving the capital market regulation to foster the enabling environment for this type of investments. And well, finally, but not least important, NDBs and development banks have the challenge of continuing the development of their own instruments to better support capital market. For example, on the IDB side, we have the policy-based guarantees, we have investment guarantees, we have blended finance structures, and we are looking forward to fine-tune the operational and manual for these instruments to be better suited for the specific needs that the countries are facing and which are evolving with time. And also, MDBs and public development banks play a crucial role in supporting issuers by providing capacity building assistance, for example, by supporting the development of frameworks for bonds, strengthening debt management offices, which play a crucial role when thinking about how to incorporate sustainability concerns in the fiscal management of the countries. And also, NDBs are very important to provide support for issuers in terms of capacity building for monitoring and reporting. So yeah, to finalize, I believe that to address the challenge of mobilizing capital markets towards conservation efforts, a high degree of coordination between all of these stakeholders is required. No? And all public development banks and multilateral development banks are well positioned to support countries in this regard.
All right. Thank you so much, Sebastian, also for this intervention, also for providing the practical insights to a topic actually we had also discussed during the whole 3 days. So now it's your turn. Look around. We have not too much time because we have to be very punctual later for also certification ceremony. So your questions. You have now the stage. We have heard the 4 different interventions, more strategic, more practical, and also again a bit more holistic. So your questions. Oh, you have a direct comment on the other interventions, maybe.
No, I wanted to, raise 2 things out of the 3 presentations. One is the issue of the blended funds as a very powerful instrument to leverage the limitations that many development banks have to mobilize resources. The blended fund and the blended strategy, because I think there's not only blended funds, there are blended strategies, really is fundamental to scale up. And I think that the examples that were given by Brazil are key. The other conclusion that I also wanted to raise from this was what Maria Jose said is we cannot leave people behind. And in these transitions that we're discussing here, the importance of just transitions is key. And development banks, again, it's difficult for private sector sometimes to understand the need of combining the 2 dimensions, the big transformations, the big investments, with the fact that you need to bring the small communities, the small companies, that if you don't bring them along, you really are going to have a very, a bad transition. And that's where, again, maybe through the blended funds or through lending, but it's very important for development banks to have that in their DNA, to understand that these big programs have always to come along with the support to small communities and SMEs that you need to bring them to the big programs. If not, those communities will be left behind. And you may solve the problem for the larger elements, but at the end, the big communities will not. And that is key in the strategies that development banks follow on all these climate change and biodiversity strategies. So I just wanted to highlight those 2 important things.
Thank you very much. Questions? Yes, please, over there, and then over there. Maybe you can collect the 2 questions and then we address them.
Well, for you, Mr. Clemente, you mentioned PPPs and your experiences, I think, 15 years ago. Can you tell us more precisely but shortly what was your challenges regarding this model, especially regarding risk of those, let's say, companies, developers, which were their experiences, how do they choose them, by the public procurement or another way, and what the experience 15 years ago, are they product profitable, are they going well, or that's what...
Well, thanks for the question. Yes. At that point in time, the local financial markets really didn't know about project finance. And the PPPs at the end, the PPP program relies on the possibility that private sector construction companies can raise funding to build the concessions over 25, 30 years operations. And, well, the risk is, I mean, there was a combination of elements. You know, there were risks that you could take as a project financier. I mean, and that was the key issue. Local financial markets didn't really, and construction companies both, they were not fully familiarized with project finance. And in project finance, through contracts, you can identify what is the source of the risk and then how you can handle it and manage it, and you can price it, and that goes in the finance instrument. So that was a big part of the structure. But there are some risks that are difficult to, even through project finance, to cover. Those were key to be covered by the government, and that's where the blended finance strategy came in. The government took some of those larger risks, like environmental licensing. You never know when the licensing is going to come out. So the project could suffer substantially if the license delayed extremely. The government offered to cap that risk. It was the government, not the project finance contract. So the combination of a good contract, of a PPP, a project finance contract, with these blended finance strategies or sources provided by the central government, created a framework that made it very attractive to international construction companies, to financial institutions to come in. That's how we were able to mobilize. And the development bank, and I want to raise that because the development bank was key on that. First, on helping bring the contracts, the project finance negotiation of the contract, a standard contract, to lead the way, even bringing the private commercial banks that were not that familiarized with that.
Yes, yeah.
And then provide even guarantees to some of the risks that were still left. So the government support, the project finance contract, and the development bank leadership and guarantees, that system did allow this big program to be funded.
Thank you very much. But you mentioned one of the key things that I was interested in, that a project should be attractive enough to attract international constructing company, which obviously had a creditworthiness and a banking background. They're bankable, they can produce, provide guarantees, etc. So it's much more easier than when you're starting with the companies which has no experience, creditworthiness at all, and you don't know, in fact, how the project will go on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question.
And you can actually add now sustainability element. We're now advising a group of construction companies and finance to how we bring in circularity, biodiversity into those contracts, and in order to elevate the contribution of infrastructure to climate change. And that with those contracts.
I take two more questions. I saw one over there and one over there. Maybe we start with you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, to Maria Jose, that the work you are doing in communities is very important. And here in Colombia, we are facing big challenge with these type of communities, especially in the regions that we need to develop sustainability infrastructure projects. So how can we as development bank, national development banks, to help solve these problems?
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're working very hard, and it's been very difficult, but we are achieving it. Blended finance are, of course, a very nice and very good instrument and a very interesting tool. you're right. You need allies in the regions, and you need to identify how to get there. In our case, we have 70 microfinance institutions to get there. But we need them to understand and to know how to address that kind of risk and that kind of specific projects. So, example, SECO, the Swiss International Corporation, is helping us to enhance and to help micro institutions to know, to address in a better way, to understand, to enhance their knowledge about development, growth, and be greener in the responsibility in the process of giving a credit, so lending money in a better way to address that kind of topics. We need microfinance institutions in the region. That is the way, because we can't do it ourselves from Bogota.
Thank you so much. Before you address your question, Christian, and I would like to also whoever will answer to this question very briefly. Meanwhile, the four of you can think about like one key message you would like to give to all the DFIs who are present, and also like the commercial banks who are present here today. What should they do? What would you advise them to move forward in mobilizing more finance for nature-based solutions, for biodiversity, but also for climate change? Think about you will have only 30 seconds, each of you. But before that, Christian, your last question.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you very much for the meaningful presentations. I would like to know what are your thoughts, or what's the approach that the institutions you are representing are following for climate actions, for example, like the RED Plus projects? What do you think? What's the approach you are following related to these kind of projects? Mainly because of the risk. Well, not recent. We have known several concerns about the proper management of the environmental and social safeguards, perhaps some overestimation of the climate action impacts resulting from those projects. So it could be very interesting to know what's the approach you are following, or your thoughts related to this kind of climate actions.
I would give the question, because you asked everyone, I would ask direct the question to Marta.
Yes, sure. Thank you for the question. BNDES is not buying carbon credits. We actually we launched a public call to buy the carbon credits, and we, in our process of due diligence of the projects, because BNDES has really a thorough due diligence, and we visit the projects, we came up with a lot of problems. And most of them were not able to fulfill the requirements of the bank to contract the project. So we gave up. We said, no, maybe this is not the best way of, this is the strategy now. This is not the best way to foment the carbon credit market, because the other strategy was, it's a new market, we have to start buying credits so we can develop the market. And BNDES, with its capital market branch, has done this in other new markets before. So it was not something new that we were doing. But since the experience of the public call and the due diligence of the projects, and then came up the problems and that were appearing with the methodology of Vera. And then we took a step back and we said, no, let's change the strategy. And we're not buying credits anymore, but we are financing the projects through Floresta Viva. The Amazon Fund is another mechanism. It's a RED Plus fund, but it's not a carbon credit. It's a fund based on results. So Brazil has to decrease deforestation first, then receive the funds. So it's not carbon credits. So the approach of BNDES right now is to take a step back, and we are financing, and we are prioritizing the restoration projects instead of the REDD+ projects, because we believe that the best way of put a price on nature, as I said, is not by carbon credit, but we have to create a mechanism to value nature. And it's not carbon credit. It's not, I think it's not appropriate for the conservation projects. It has we have to create another mechanism. So I hope I could answer your question.
Thank you so much, Marta, for the answer. So, as I said, unfortunately, we have to stop this conversation now. As I've mentioned earlier, what is your key message to your fellows here in the room, to your peers here in the room from the different DFIs? Everyone has 30 seconds. We start with Sebastian.
Sure, I would say my main suggestion will be to analyze and quantify the intended, support your clients to analyze and quantify intended impacts in order to establish roadmap actions. And also work together with your clients to understand the financial environment of the transactions they're requesting in order to identify the most appropriate instrument to support their goals. And also work with them on building their capacity to monitor and reporting, which is a crucial part of these transactions. So that will be my main suggestion.
Thank you. Now, Maria Jose.
I would say we have to make an effort to simplify language and to have a better understanding and to help others to understand how to implement that kind of projects and how address and understand adaptation and mitigation to climate change. Simplify language.
Simplifying language, very good. Marta, what is your key message to the audience?
I would say that to know the context. I mean, each territory has a climate and a nature biodiversity challenge. And we should be, the development banks should be where no one else is going. So we should be in the top of the mountain or in the bottom of the mountain, I don't know. But we should be where we have to innovate and we have to go where no one else is going. And so we could scale up these projects. We have to be big. We have to, we can't rely anymore on small little projects. We have to, these little projects, they need to be in a bigger strategy so we can be scaling up the preservation of nature and the transition of the climate transition.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Clemente, you have the last word.
Well, two main recommendations. One, knowledge and capacity building. You have to really increase the resources put into that to really build the capacity in your institutions to really lead the way. And the second one, in order to endorse that, you need to get a stronger mandate from the senior officials from your organizations to really prioritize this topic. I mean, this has to become one of the most important topics within your institutions, because really, I think development banks are the key players in this transformation. So seek for that mandate, which is key for that.
Thank you so much. I think this summarizes everything very well. Speaking the same language, looking at the context, think big, providing it really from like in the big picture, and as far as we do it here these 3 days, build the knowledge, build the capacities, not only in you as you have attended, but also spread this information in your institutions. I think this is a very good closing word. So thank you everyone, Sebastian, Marta, Maria Jose, Clemente, for this very interesting panel discussion. Thank you for joining us, and then we have a quick change here, and then we continue with the next session. Thank you so much.
Hello, hello. Okay. Can I ask for the session 17? Thank you. We are running a little bit over time, so I'm very sorry. I will be skipping some of the slides, but anyways, As you remember, we have the methodology to repeat some stuff so that you remember. So maybe today I will not be repeating too much, okay? So I'm sorry, we will be skipping slides. I didn't have time to update, kind of to hide some of the slides. So the last session of my last session is about developing green finance products. And again, this is approach that I take regularly with the banks when we are working with them on creating green products. So basically, almost all types of finance can be turned into green if you work hard enough. However, there are particular ones that are the most common ones, and this would be green mortgages, equity loans, car loans, commercial loans, building loans, green project finance, technology leasing, and some bonds. As I mentioned, typically cash loans are not turning green because of the lack of use proceeds, right? However, we could work around it. The first day I mentioned this solution that is available in Colombia when you pay by card and you can split it into installments. This is something that could actually make kind of a cash loan green if we would work on it. When it comes to development of green products, there are several steps that are needed to be taken. Of course, they are more or less in line with the typical approach you take when you're creating new products. However, it needs to take into consideration the green elements of the product. Typically, when we start to talk with the bank, we ask them about the typical, let's say, product format that they have, so that they are already, that we start to work with them already on documents that they recognize well. And then we expand the product format by the green elements. Also, we define with the banks the stakeholders list. So as a consultant, we understand who will be working with us on the product. And typically, of course, this is not only the product department, but it's not only an ESG department. We also need marketing people on board and operational people. And this is because we are touching interdepartmental issue. We are touching typically something new, and we need to understand if elements that we introduce are, will we have other departments on board, right? Because product department, by definitions, typically is on board because they want to introduce a new product, but other department might be a little bit skeptic. So we need to engage them from the very beginning. Of course, the typical elements of the product, you know, right? The source of the financing, type of interest size, payment method, grace period, and so on. And we also add the green elements, which is eligibility criteria, types of potential projects that we can finance, and a process of establishing the eligibility. This is an example. You will get this presentation. You can go through it. And with this information, we have the initial product design, and then we do typically a brainstorming. We get feedback from different departments, and also start working on a strategy to go out to the market. What is very important is the proper marketing strategy. Typically, we are talking about kind of product that is much more, you know, technical than typical loans, right? So together with the marketing strategy, we need to work on proper messaging. But before that, we need to also work on the client segmentation and choose the proper appropriate for the client segmentation, sales channels and communication channels, and then we work on communication messages, right? We don't want to flood people too much with the engineering terms, with the long list of technologies. We need to be a little bit more marketing oriented. So we do the brainstorming, we get the feedback. Typically it's quite challenging for all the stakeholders because we need to find an equilibrium between eligibility criteria and being, following the proper approach and bankability of the product, right? A very important tool that we use and something that is very appreciated by banks, and I did that myself in, I think, 20 banks already, is portfolio and pipeline review. So we ask the banks to provide us with their current portfolio or pipeline. We define the format. We ask them to provide us with as much information about particular loans as possible. We take whatever is provided to us because, of course, banks have limitation in terms of tracking loans, right? There is very often lack of big description of the project in the system. So we try to be pragmatic. We ask them for the sectors, loan types, and a little bit of information what was the subject of the loan. And then we sort it by sectors that could be, first of all, we remove the uneligible sectors. We look at only the eligible sectors. We remove the uneligible loan types. And this way we narrow down and we get the first potential size of green share of the portfolio. Of course, this is a very kind of rough estimation, but we also have the discussion with them. We go into details of some loans, and this way we can get a little bit more precise. This way, this is the first step to get a buy-in from a bank to sign a green facility, for example, right? Because they need to be confident that when they are signing the green facility, they are taking a big loan, that they will be able to disburse the money, right? I'm talking about now development bank providing finance to a local bank that will then disburse the money to local companies, right? So the local bank, we review the portfolio of the local bank so that this bank is comfortable when signing with the development bank. We also define an operation manual. I mentioned it yesterday. Define the processes, define who's responsible for what. We add in the processes elements that are typical for the green loan, so the eligibility confirmation, and also, if it's needed, a verification of completion and verification of the results, right? This we talked yesterday. Typical structure of the finance facility. Did everyone see this structure? Do you know it? No? A moment to read it. Okay, let me describe it. So typically we have some donors that provide some TA money, hopefully available, right, in a given country. Then there is the multilateral development bank or some, let's say, bank of banks, as we sometimes say, and the bank provides a loan facility to local financial institution, which then disburse the green money to local companies and so on. And if the setup is in place and appropriate TA money, then a project consultant is hired, which provides technical assistance both to the local financial institution in terms of creation of the product, marketing, trainings and reaching out to the clients and the market, and also provides technical assistance to the end clients in form of advisory, what is green, what type of projects they can do. And very often there is a verification consultant, especially when there are some grants or TA money involved. A verification of the projects needs to take place. Also, a very important stakeholder of the green facilities are the suppliers of technologies. I mentioned yesterday, one of the challenges in the developing countries is availability of technologies, affordability of technologies, and availability of services that could fix the technologies, which sometimes break, right? So they are we need to always remember about the suppliers. And as I said yesterday, actually suppliers could also benefit from green trade facilitation loans, where you support them in importing the green technologies to actually enable this financing here, right? Then we go for the final product design. There are some presentations to the senior management, to the boards, and then the bank takes it into the standard process of product approval. In the meantime, we might have to train some headquarter people to actually be able to take part in this discussion. One of such let's say trainings like that. We provide similar trainings. Typically they are a little bit shorter because we cannot expect, senior the director of operation to spend with us 3 days unless he's really kind of willing to do so. But typically, if we get 2 hours, then we are very happy. So we need to kind of raise his awareness. And then when the product is ready, very important are the trainings of relationship managers, the ones that go out to the market, to the clients, and propose them the green loans, green financing, right? They need to be confident when they reach out to their clients in what they are doing. If they are not trained, you can have the best offer. If they don't like the offer, if they don't understand the product, they will not do the credit action. And that's incredibly important. So one of the messages that I would like you to take home is that awareness raising is not ending for your institution here. It needs to continue, and it needs to go through the whole institution. At certain moments, right? Now, you're looking into greenhouse gas emission accounting, into green lending. Then you kind of push through and create this green financing in your facility, and then people down the stream, that are actually reaching out to the market need to also be trained, and they need to be provided with a little bit different training than that, less theoretical, more practical, and you will get a glimpse of it today with this limited time, and you will see how we talk with them. Let me just skip some stuff that I wanted to repeat. So I will now talk about types of climate activities, reactions on climate change, and then we will move to examples of projects. In the previous slides, there was energy efficiency and renewables. I think we covered it quite well over the last 2 days. Another type of challenge that we can face, that we can solve with the green lending is waste. Any projects that deal with waste management, recycling, using biodegradable products can also be subject of green lending. Of course, something that is even better than waste management is circular economy, which is a model of production which takes the resources and uses them in a circular motion over and over and over again. So in general, circular economy as a concept is concerning something bigger than one particular company. It's talking about the whole economy. But circular economy projects are possible to do with SMEs, especially when they kind of design new products or design processes which allow actually to reuse their products. And one important thing, recycling is not circular economy. Recycling is just a step towards circular economy, okay? Another very important factor is the fact that most of the developing countries are actually water stressed. Unfortunately, I think also the developed countries are having problems. In US, the water reservoirs are very, very low. Poland, for example, is one of the driest countries in EU. Since I had an occasion to manage an agriculture company, we had 400 hectares, and there were people that were working in the company for last almost 50 years, and they told me that they are seeing the fact that there is less and less and less water. And then I read about it, and apparently over last 100 years, the water table, which is the level of water underground, dropped in Poland by few meters. And it really impacts the agriculture, amongst others. So, of course, the water stress is not only a problem of developing countries. However, of course, it's a matter of fund availability, and green lending can actually help here. And how do we help? With water-efficient projects. In agriculture, we save water by using efficient irrigation. Also, greenhouses are a way to save water. And of course, any projects concerning industry which uses water. I mentioned textile in particular, which uses a lot of water. Food and beverage sector also uses a lot of water. So this is where there are big opportunities to provide loans. And by the way, these technologies that I mentioned are not cutting edge. These are not R&D technologies. These are technologies from the shelf, which makes them bankable, right? Another very, very big problem, which is now picking up, I guess, in general, is soil degradation. If you read about it, some sources say that we are left with 100 yields, and then we will lose the soil, agriculture soil. 100 yields means 100 years of crops, and then we don't have food. So soil degradation is a very big problem, and there are few types of soil degradation: soil erosion, soil organic carbon loss, soil salinization, and soil compaction. These are most of them are caused by human activity in agriculture. Soil erosion is caused, for example, by heavy rains. We do see not only that we get less rains, but also the pattern of the rains changes. So now, for example, Tajikistan, where I had a climate resilience facility, they still get the same amount of water, but it's not dispersed over the year, it's at once. And this picture here, I don't know if you can see it very well. There's a big crater made. This is a photo that I made in Tajikistan after such a heavy rain, and this, by the way, was a field of a farmer. So his big part of crops was taken away by a mudslide. Yeah? Then the next one is soil organic carbon loss. Of course, carbon is something that is a major building element of plants. If we grow a lot, then there is less and less and less carbon. And what do farmers do when they have lower yields? They add more fertilizer, right? Typically chemical fertilizer. and they add more and more, and the yields drop and drop, and at certain moment, and again, this is a photo that I made in Tajikistan, at certain moment there is so much fertilizer and kind of substances that are coming from the fertilizer that the soil gets salinizated. And this white stuff is not, it's not snow, it's salt. And there will be nothing growing there. Yeah? And the last is soil compaction. This is typically caused by heavy agriculture, driving heavy tractors through the fields. Yeah, if we don't do proper actions, which are called soil and net management, then we end up with a field that looks like that. And by the way, again, this is a real photo that I made. This is before and after our support to the farmer. This is a field after cotton production. Many years of cotton production made it look like sand, right? And then we applied the proper soil and land management, green coverage. This is not just grass growing. These are special plants here that are helping to kind of turn back the proper soil quality, and this is actually apricot orchard. So we provided here drainage, irrigation, green cover, and some advisory to the farmer to deal with it. And he's happily growing orchards, apricots. Sorry. So. Specific kind of action also to deal with, to run agriculture in a more green way and sustainable way actually is conservation agriculture. This is defined by Food Agriculture Organization. You can Google it and read a little bit more about it. But basically, this is about making the least disturbance in the soil while farming using tradition. This is actually taking us back to the traditional way of farming, natural fertilizer, using natural fertilizers, using no-tillage technologies. You know what's tillage? Tillage is when the farmer make the ground go like that. And every time they do like that, some of the soil is runoff. They also compact the soil a bit, and it's suboptimal. And I saw on my own eyes in the company that I was managing, where we did implement no-tillage technology, that actually our yields went up. The tricky thing is that the first year of no-tillage actually brings a drop in the yields. So awareness raising amongst farmers is very important as well. Then green crops, I mentioned. Green crops help to change the residuals in the soil into food for crops. Saves also from soil erosion, increase soil carbon content, and also help to keep the moisture in the ground. And green crops can be used also to feed the livestock. Natural positive solutions, Christine already talked about it, so allow me to jump to the next subject. Is critical when it comes to green financing is project assessment. And of course, we want to be as pragmatic as possible to reduce costs of processing of loans. So experience shows that the banks and everyone is looking for some simplifications. That's why typically there are two types of project assessment: simple and complex. Simple are the lists, which one of the examples was mentioned by the gentleman from India, a list of eligible technologies. If something is on this list, then the loan can be considered green. Very simple, doesn't disrupt the process of provision of the loans. And of course, you need to know how to put technologies on this list, right? So we are using some international standards. There are, for example, IE for electric motors. This is a standard of efficiency. There are also some technologies that are eligible by default, of course, PV, solar thermal, and e-mobility as a way of transitioning from fossil fuel transport to electric transport. Let me show you two examples of such lists. First one is the one coming from European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. The name is Green Technology Selector. You can enter it at www.techselector.com. It's available in 30 countries of EBRD operation. There are 40,000 products listed that are eligible, which allow the local banks that are doing business with EBRD to provide the loans without big disturbance. There are on this list, there are 70 or 80 types of technologies like windows, insulation, heat pumps, air conditioners, process equipment, forklifts, electric vehicles, even washing machines, depending, because it needs to serve different types of facilities. EBRD uses this list to provide green loans, green leasing, green bonds, and this is one of the best, most sophisticated lists because this is online, and it has a feeling of a kind of like a eBay. There was some time that people were calling it Green Alibaba. Because basically it's built on a sales platform. The client, the interested party can review it, surf through it, and looking for efficient air conditioner. The vendors are also mentioned there. And at the end of the day, the goal of this platform is that the borrower that wants to get the green loan adds his product to the basket, right? Something that we all know, the basket in the web shop, and he can create eligibility certificate. And this is the proof for the bank that this is eligible and the loan can be marked as green. Typically, banks love it, right? Because it doesn't disturb the process. Another example is coming from European Investment Bank. This is for now available only in Europe. I don't know EIB's plans to expand to other countries, but I would say it's logical to do that. And again, in a little bit different way, they have also provided a web-based tool that establishes eligibility, and there's also kind of oh, come on. Okay. There is also kind of type of certificate or checker results, right? And they use it now in Europe for their green finance. And then the other type, so we talked about the simple automatic eligibility, let's say. The other type are complex measures. So these are the projects that cannot be financed through this automatic way from this list. These are the projects that have to be somehow assessed by an expert, right? Because they are either quite big or quite complex, and this is where someone needs to have an individual look at it. So within this process, we go to the client, we talk, we either have a site visit or we just call the client, talk with him, ask about the technical specification, we take the data from supplier, we do some research, and then we do the assessment and establish eligibility status. And of course, the format is depending on the bank, on the agreements, and so on. It might be in the format of a very lengthy report or a short note, depending on what is agreed. Of course, both the lists, automatic lists, and the complex measures and reports have to provide reporting data. So this brings this discussion towards greenhouse gas accounting. If you go into MDB common principles, you will see at least amongst others the climate mitigation reporting KPIs and also climate adaptation KPIs. And typically, this would be the data that are being collected, right? And then you put it into the system, into your loan tracking system, and then it actually supports you in providing Scope 3 portfolio greenhouse gas emission reporting. How much time do I have? Minus 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. Now I have to think what to show you. What are the sectors where you operate, maybe? Just shout out. No sectors? The what? Transport. Okay. Okay, sorry, I have to now jump through some slides. Okay. Oh, sorry, I have to. This is the no-tillage equipment. And before I go to transport, sorry, because agriculture is close to my heart. For you to understand that this is not something out of the blue. This is being implemented both on big farms, but also on small farms. This is a rather bigger piece of equipment, but there are also smaller ones for small farmers. And what it is about, basically, the traditional way of cultivating is going even 5 times through the field and disrupting the earth. With no tillage, we go once. So even looking at this graph, you can see that there's, besides the soil erosion savings, there is also fuel savings, right? So this is why we also promote it amongst the farmers. And by the way, these all photos are coming from projects that I did with the banks. Also, slurry spreaders, you remember I talked about the fertilizers and natural fertilizers. This is not very green because it gives away a lot of ammonia to the environment. It's not precise. The traditional way of spreading slurry, which is, I hope you know what's a slurry. This is manure and so on, right? So there are very precise way of providing slurry to the ground, which saves the slurry from going to the rivers and contaminating external environment. Water harvesting. There are some videos. We will share the presentations so you can watch them later on. Let me just jump to the transport. Excuse me? One video. Okay, so which video would you like to see? There is a video about water, and there is a video about cooling solutions in agriculture supply chain. This one? Okay, decided. This is from Nigeria.
What motivates me is to give back to my country. The big idea behind code hubs is to deploy 100% solar-powered working code rooms. We have a pay-as-you-go business model. Rather, we call it pay-as-you-stop. So what we are trying to do is to deploy a seamless cold chain from the farm to the market, making more nutritious, safe, hygienic food available for Nigerians. The agricultural development sector in Nigeria needs a lot of modern thinking because at the moment it is driven by traditional practices. So in the north of Nigeria, we built cold rooms in farm clusters because the north is actually the food belt of Nigeria. Then down south, we built cold hubs in marketplaces because most of the food coming from the north comes down to the south where you have an upcoming middle class who are actually requesting for high quality food.
Before we started using cold hubs, we preserve our vegetables under the shade. I feel very bad when our vegetables go bad because even if we couldn't sell it, we still have to pay for transportation and the people that helps us harvest it. We started using cold hubs early last year and it has been very helpful to us. I would like to say to other farmers to use cold hubs because I know the losses and I know how it feels to not be able to make profits when you are working so hard.
There are a lot of challenges. Nigeria is a difficult country to do business first. The first challenge we had was how to manage our finances. This is a cash-based business, you know. So every day you have people paying a little bit of money and renting space. So one of the things we did was to have an arrangement with our bank, and our bank will use their agent every day to come and mop up money from each cold hub. But it's not the solution. We're actually looking at digital payment platforms that we can use. So that's the first challenge. And the second thing is to rent land in marketplaces. The marketplaces are densely populated. Getting land space to the size we need turned out to be more difficult than we thought. And what we did was to walk around the local government officials to get land to launch so that they can see what we are doing. So it's just like not getting what you want, but actually using whatever you are offered to launch the business. No, we're actually dreaming very big. I tell people that if you can develop a technology in Nigeria, test it in Nigeria, succeed in Nigeria, you can actually deploy it to any African country. We've received requests from all over the world, from Senegal, from Rwanda, from Mali, from Niger, from Kenya, over and over and over. We've actually received a lot of requests from Alaska, the USA. Yeah, it's funny. I wonder what they need a code hub for.
Okay, is it inspiring? And is it bankable? Yes. There is nothing that is innovative in this product. The idea is innovative. Photovoltaics are products from the shelf. Cold rooms are products from the shelf. Cooling technologies are products from the shelf. For a bank providing finance to this, the technological risk is not there, right? Of course, there is a cash flow kind of assessment that you need to do, but in general, as the guy said, if something can succeed in Nigeria, it can succeed in other African countries, amongst others, right? So let's move a little bit forward. Do you want to see another movie about Myanmar? Okay.
Myanmar's rivers are vital to the entire country, but they are under threat. A booming industry is polluting them. With 69% of registered businesses, the food and beverage sector is one of the key industries in Myanmar. WWF estimates that in Yangon city alone, the total discharge of wastewater going into the Ayeyarwady River from the food and beverage industries is over 100,000 gallons per day. 34 million people depend on the Ayeyarwady River basin alone the country's biggest river. That's 2/3 of the country. The result of polluted rivers is not only a weakening of already fragile ecosystems and riverine wildlife, but it is also affecting people who rely on the rivers for food, water, and irrigating crops. So what can we do to make sure our rivers are healthy? Myanmar needs a strong food and beverage sector that will drive growth and create jobs. But it needs to grow sustainably. The Bawa project, funded by the European Union under Switch Asia program, is working with food and beverage businesses to help them introduce wastewater treatment and energy efficiency measures.
For the moment, Europe is looking at labor rights and human rights in our trade policy. But in the future, we will also be looking at whether trade is green. So our trade with Myanmar will be good if Myanmar's production is green. And Tabawa is helping to do that.
The country's rivers have great economic and historical significance, which should be protected and preserved for future generations. Myanmar's future depends on healthy, clean, and free-flowing rivers.
We would like to see more local businesses follow the footsteps of Walco and Silvery Pearl, who invested in cleaner production. Together with our partner MFPA and SBFIC, we support SMEs from the food and beverage sector in switching towards cleaner production practices.
Okay, another example, wastewater treatment is also very bankable, and it's just a matter of defining the sector in your country or region of interest that is using a lot of water and rolling out a green facility for that, right? Of course, there are different types of technologies that can be financed, and you will find in the materials that we will share examples of real case green loans. So all these examples here are real. These are not something that we came up with. They are coming from some of the facilities we took part in, and you can see how different, you will see how different the technologies can be, different sizes of loans. They can go from micro loans of $500 to big loans for SMEs, million, 2 million euros, and of course up to the corporates, tens of millions of dollars. And each of these projects has actually has been assessed. There is information about energy savings and also CO2 emission reduction, which you need for your reporting, right? We are looking for the transport. Okay, here it is. Transport. There are different types of transport. One of them is the internal transport. Internal transport in the companies. Again, I mentioned forklifts. You remember, typically they are used until they fall apart. They are not efficient. So the electrification, it's not only touching our cars, but also forklifts. Yeah. Modern forklifts are very energy efficient, and they can potentially be also covered under green facilities. Of course, electric cars and a little bit less and less hybrid cars, depending on the region, are subject of green finance. And please don't forget that besides financing electric cars, you need to also finance chargers, because the chargers are critical in actually picking up the electric vehicle market in general, right? So electric chargers for cars should be eligible by definition. There is also car sharing, non-motorized vehicles, also this is the proper name, that can be subject of green finance. Another example are buildings. So first of all, buildings that are subjects of green building certification. can be financed under green facilities, but also we can finance refurbishments of the buildings. So there is an old building, and maybe the owner doesn't want to go into green building certification scheme because it costs a little bit of money, and it's additional process. So he wants just to exchange the windows, lighting, insulation, and so on. So typically there is an assessment, an energy building audit that also kind of provides information about energy savings and at the end of the day CO2 emission reductions. So key takeaways is that there is a wide range of okay, I have 2 minutes, great. There is a wide range of sectors and types of technologies and products that you can roll out to the market. Of course, as a development banks, most likely you will be providing finance through local banks. So your role here is to actually reach out to the local banks and educate them and provide them offers of green facilities and kind of, again, build awareness, provide them with some support. What do you recognize as green, and what they can do with the money you could provide them. And basically the same goes about the companies, right? And that is all. Are there any questions? Do you have a microphone?
Thank you. I was wondering if maybe we can include in the positive list of technologies for the transportation sector the infrastructure required to use those technologies. For example, bicycle lanes or exclusive lanes in roads to be used by electric vehicles, by the bicycles, and so on.
I did not discuss it with the companies that I was developing the lists, but I would say it could also be. The thing is that you need to be able to prove that this money were used really for what you just said, right? The use of proceeds needs to be in place. So it's not just a walkway, for example. So, but of course, this, what you said, would be a subject of green finance, right? It's just a question, would it be assessed or can we put it on an automatic list? Seems a little bit automatic, right? But this is something that has to be well considered. Any other questions? I could talk about these examples for 2 days, so really I limited myself today to 40 minutes. Okay, please. The gentleman from India. And then just look for a microphone.
So these days, a lot of innovation is happening towards building management system also. So a lot of equipments are being installed in the buildings to save energy throughout, like in terms of the water consumption, energy consumption. Does that is part of the this positive list?
The automatic
BMS,
list?
yes.
Yeah, in my work, I actually proposed to one of the companies to add it, but we didn't conclude the discussion yet.
Because so far, whatever demo we have seen in India from the companies, especially the startups who are actually coming out with these solutions, the results are really, really good.
Yes, so in general, building management system, if just to explain to anyone that doesn't know, is a system that allows to manage, for example, this ventilation, manage temperature in the room, and manage maybe automatic shading, and so on. And applying automation, you remember I talked about the guy that was smoking in the meat production, right? So providing this automation and a system that will monitor it will save. The challenge here with the BMS is that you, depending on the application, there will be much different savings. So if it's on automatic list, you don't gather information about the client too much. So providing a proxy estimation is quite challenging because it can be a ton CO2 emission reduction and it can be 1,000 tons. right? Because it really depends on the size of the building, size of the BMS, and so on. So this is the discussion that I didn't conclude yet with one of the donors. Okay, just last question. Christine, please.
Oh, thanks. My question is regarding more into the non-financial services approach in terms of, for instance, we have seen some examples about the kind of solutions to be financed as well as the type of financial products to be designed to answer to these kind of prospects, let's say. However, I was wondering if you have maybe a concrete example in analyzing these kind of projects based on data. For instance, I can imagine that in the example that you provided us on the cooling solution in Nigeria, how do these smallholder farmers to some extent can be assessed, for instance, based on the payment of public utilities or something like volume of data that they normally do in order to create these kind of alternative scoring mechanisms based on embedded finance or these kind of solutions, you know, because I can imagine, for instance, there's a company within an industrial park, and they want to acquire a loan for changing the refrigerations or the lighting systems. However, the bank, when analyzing these kind of solutions, maybe there's lack of data in terms of the culture payment of this company or the value of the assets they want to acquire in terms of collateral. So maybe if you have some example on the scoring, on the analyzing the risks profile of this kind of SMEs.
So example from the top of my head, I don't have, and I don't have it on the slides. Typically, one of the important things when you're rolling out with green finance is to start with something that is bankable for you already, right? So typically, this process is actually already in the bank. Because if you're providing loans to industrial companies, you are analyzing their cash flow, right? And asset value. So that's my kind of from the top of my head answer. However, when it comes to more complex situations, when the bank actually requests additional analysis, we go into complex analysis and we provide the bank with, for example, savings, monetary savings, thanks to the exchange of refrigerators system. And this can be taken on board by the bank in credit assessment, for example. I hope it answers your question just a little bit. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you a lot.
I'm really sorry I have really to kind of force him to shorten it, but also Javier is coming for the ceremony. But in a way, it's also only one part of the journey. Like with the IDFC Club, you have really regular meetings where you can continue and exchange. And so it's really just the beginning. And also in case you have questions, Jonas shared in the chat also a link where the material is now recently really also uploaded, where you can access it. And you can also contact us in case you have questions. Or I always know that also Tawana and Mustafa have always an open air if you have comments, suggestions, ideas to make really use of this.
Maybe also Okay, great. Also, maybe one announcement as well. You might noticed, well, we are already out of time at the moment. There's one session which we unfortunately could not integrate now because of the time. It was several times mentioned about greenwashing, ESG litigation. We have agreed that this will not. You will definitely get this session, and in the form of a webinar. So we will, and maybe in a few weeks, we will schedule a webinar where we have this session where we can discuss this topic, because it has in several sessions, Michael has several times again mentioned this topic, which is very crucial also, like when you're considering your operations and setting up new products. So we have the session, but in the form of a webinar and a follow-up. Also a good opportunity to reconnect again.
Great. So as Javier is not here yet, we're still waiting for something. We promised you the whole time, and now we do it. Just yesterday, you were really nice, kindly trying our new game, and it was really nice to see that you engaged really a lot and really tried to find every single mistake we could have made or where it was not clear. It shows that really you were in the topic discussing and also realizing that the devil lies in the detail. And we have finally tracked all the submissions. They have, one or two have been slightly adjusted overall. And so we are really proud. We have the first group with the third best efficiency quote. This is actually group number 5.
Who's group number 5?
Group number 5.
You remember your numbers?
Oh,
you can't remind me.
Oh, no.
Group. Oh. Okay.
Now we have to check.
They remember their group numbers.
I don't remember.
So we started over there with 1, then we had 2, 3. So it should be rather here somewhere.
No, Jonas, it was going back and forth.
How did you count?
And nobody wants the chocolate? Oh boy. What a pity. I will take it.
If you already raised the hand without... You're group 5? We will check. We
should have make photos.
So meanwhile, you have the time to remember your group number. We still have left 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6.
That's a good one.
So where's group 1? Do you remember who was group 1? It was here. Great. 1. Number 2. You were 2? Great. You were sitting over there, right? Yes, number 2. Number 3. It was you.
Okay.
Oh, great. Number 4. Who was number 4? And who's number 6? It was you. You were sitting over there, right? Yeah, in the back. Okay, so a big applause for the third place. So,
who was in your group?
Hey, great. Congratulations.
Now that the chocolate is mentioned. Yes, it is Colombian.
It is actually, yeah.
The best one.
We also always a share of the price you have to pay is going into reforestation of a forest. I was expecting this. I had a look at it.
Okay.
So the second place, we have group number
3. 3.
Number 3 in the second place. Oh, over there. Yay, very good. What?
And they had like an efficiency of 6.82 per euro invested. So emission saving of 6.82. And I think you had a look at it and could also say what was like the reason, because
this was the first one.
Okay. Now
the first it was quite easy to identify the strategy.
The winner with a coefficient of 10.38 emissions savings per invested euro is group number
6.
I give it to you. So what was your strategy?
What?
What was your investment strategy?
Oh,
please remember.
No, but on scope 3, I remember that we invested on helping employees to use public transport. On scope 2, we didn't have investments. And then the other 4 strategies were in scope 1, where we look for wall isolating, ventilation, and upgrading the heating.
Yes, and that's kind of a good outcome and conclusion, that before you start to change equipment, it's good to look at your building, whether it's insulated. Remember, energy efficiency is on the top, and they invested in energy efficiency across the whole building.
And the second thing is, like we all learned yesterday, we normally either make our boiler more efficient, or we investing in a heat pump. So the other two systems, it's normally a bit contradictory. And unfortunately, it's a bit also reflecting the reality that currently still investing in a heat pump is not the most efficient way. So we had it both in our personal life. Here in Germany, we will invest, but the government is supporting us with 50% of the investment cost up to 30,000, so that it more or less comes, almost the same. But your experience in Poland?
Much different, unfortunately. According to the calculations, the payback from the heat pump was too long, exceeding the lifetime of the heat pump. And instead of spending more money on the heat pump, we have added additional insulation, which, by the way, in Poland, the standard thickness of insulation, I have to say that, is 20 centimeters. And it's already very efficient building. We added for €1,000 additional 5 centimeters, which dropped the consumption of the building by half. So instead of investing tens in heat pump, we invested in the insulation. And sometimes this is how it works. That's why it's very important to raise awareness and also include some technical experts in the projects, because they might actually come up with some ideas that are kind of more profitable at the end of the day and have a higher efficiency. Okay?
Yeah, thank you very much. Now I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Okay. So from our side, we would really tell you a lot. Great, thank you for all the participation and really the active participation from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock and then even later in the evening with this. So it was really amazing. It's also nice to see like the interaction between, that you can really learn from each other, and also that you really so open to share your experience, both on like things which went really good, but also things which don't go too well. So it's really a nice group, and I think this IDFC club, I think Mustafa, you have an amazing group to work on here, and still a long way to go.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Christine, and to Jonas for and also to Mika for the very good time that we spent together. I would like just maybe to say a few words, and I will not be very long. First, I would like to have some thoughts for our colleagues who couldn't come. Some of them wanted to come, but for different reasons, they couldn't. And I will say by the alphabetical order, like BNDES, CDG, TDB, and we really regret that they couldn't come. And this is just to tell you, to give you a rendezvous for the next year. We will prepare for you something more amazing. So please keep posted. And between now and the next training session, we have a lot to do together. And we count on your participation to all our activities. I would like also to thank Balkondex for hosting this very important training, and for the very professional organization, really amazing organization. I would like that you give a big applause to a former school and to Balkondex for the organization. Thank you very much for that. And see you next year. More people, more colleagues coming and participating, and networking between you. I think that is very important. Thank you.
We keep you here.
Yeah?
We keep you here for the ceremony.
Yes.
So for the ceremony, we are also happy that Javier took the time to also join us again. And we suggest that we would call always 5 people on the stage. Oh, okay. One by one. Okay. And to give your certificates. So. And then to have, for sure, a photo as a memory.
Yes. ¿Están abiertos? Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. I wanted to take just a couple of minutes. If maybe one of you would like to share your experience, but especially, please tell us how to improve. Because I think, or at least my wonderful team says, this has been a very productive 3 days. But I would like to ask any one of you who would like to come up here for a couple of minutes and tell us how to improve. So, if I may, any volunteers? Or maybe I can choose? Anyone? Chocolate winners? Okay. How can I identify the chocolate winners? Okay. You're the lucky one.
Okay. Well, I want to begin thanking you all for the opportunity to be here for organizing this event. This is the first time I, on behalf of CABE, participate in one training for IDFC members. I've liked the experience. I think it's very productive. It's been interesting listening to what other peers have been doing, like learning how they're applying some tools, like how CAF is using the carbono balance, how other banks are doing their ex-ante assessment, and learning what other regions of the world is happening. So it's very fruitful for the work I'm doing in CABE and what we're doing as an institution. I would have liked to have more group sessions, like tables. So I think that we will have learned more from that peer learning. That's very useful because in theory you can learn and listen a lot, but you get tips from people when they are implementing in different regions and contexts. So I guess that will be something to improve, and that I will have liked personally to have more group interaction and tables to share more experience than just the 2 panels that we had the opportunity to have, and that were very insightful and very great for applying and thinking about the topics and take some thoughts for improvement in our daily basis. So that will be for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Okay, so with that, a note, and thank you for the feedback. I would like once again to ask for a big round of applause for yourselves, for the friends at the University of Frankfurt, for my friend Mustafa, but especially for the team who put this together. So thank you very much.
I will take this one, exactly. All right, then we'll start. Maybe you, I was asked that you can go to the middle of the screen, please. That the participants, then we can take the pictures accordingly. Great. Still have to arrange the last logistic information, these details. Great, okay. Good, then we start with the certification ceremony. So we will call you one by one. And the first one we would like to come to the stage is Natalie Lago. Picture. Exactly, you will get each individual pictures. All right, thank you so much. Then we would like to ask to the stage Christian Novoa. Not here? Not here? Okay, good. Okay. Next one, we would like to invite Mani Ratan Gogade. Thank you. And the next person we would like to invite is Maria Fernanda Manrique. Then we invite Andrea Aldana. Then we invite Komlan Moglo. The next one we invite kindly to the front is Evelyn Rodriguez. The next person, please come to the front, Christian Grisales. And the next person, colleague from CAF, Patricia Rivera. Then we invite Eric Castro. And the next person is Yaogi Chang. Followed by Yi Chang. The next person we would like to invite is Gabriela Toro Sima. Next person we invite Carla Rossi Pio. Next one, Olympus Mantata. Now we move to CDP, Francesca Spinosi. And we go back to DBSA, Mohamed Sayed. Next person, Nirai Verma. And we invite Vaisal Korni. Followed by Hani Viayanti. Now we invite Dracenka Dracenovic. Next person, Branimir Grigat. And Gordon Kubek. Then we invite Ernst Wollitz. Then we invite Raitwan Bokai. Then we invite Shrikant Hiramat. Then we invite Siloshini Naidu. She just run away, oh good. Then we invite Lina Ricaurte. With the fans over there. And Tawana Lima. Ja, schön nochmal. Please come to the front, Samuel Forero. Then we invite to the front Gloria Alonso. Followed by Alejandra Diaz. To take pictures. Then we invite Richard Martinez. Then please come to the front, Katia Parteremina. Next person, Lina Gamba. You have all very long ways, no, to go to that side, to that side. Yeah. Next person, Maria Alejandra Lara. Then we invite Alfonso Vergara to the front. Followed by Mario Reina.
Yes, that's it. Thanks very much. And thanks very much for coming and also giving in Mustafa. Thanks a lot. And I think before everyone is leaving, I would give the floor to Jeanne, who would like to give some idea, like information for the trip to Medellin.
Hello. Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Happy to be here. So I'm Karine Megel. I'm working for the AFD Campus Group. And here is Jeanne Ena.
Hello, nice to meet you. I will be facilitating the next part of the workshop, which is hosted in Medellin, where some of you will be attending.
Yes, you are invited to these 2 days in Medellin, which will be hosted, of course, by IDFC, by AFD Campus Group, by Comfama, and also by the Festival Actuar por el Vivo, which is currently going on in Medellin. These 2 days will be complementary to this training you've been through in Bogota, and it will be a mixture of inspirational talks with inspiring speakers from the festival on subjects like how can regenerative practices inspire us, what is post-development, new geopolitics of water, and also some innovative workshops.
Yes, so we will have workshops on systemic thinking and how can we apply it to our organizations, how to act from a place of intention, how to crack our old acting models to be more efficient and also implement change in our organization. So you will join a WhatsApp group. You will have the message on a WhatsApp group for those who join. And we will be taking the flight tonight and meeting you all there tomorrow. So maybe just to have a glimpse, can we ask you to raise your hands, those who will be joining us in Medellin, so that we can just see the faces before we start. Okay, wonderful.
So you will keep contact through the WhatsApp group, and we wish you a pleasant flight and see you in Medellin.
Thank you. I was told that there is one certificate meeting. I don't. Yeah, maybe you have to call.
Yes,
him.
please.
Or?
Juan Sebastian Valle.